I want to tell you about one of the best students I've ever had and what exactly makes him the best student. There are people all over the world taking private English lessons, and there are even more who are learning English on their own with nothing more than the internet. And whether you're taking classes or teaching yourself, there are certain qualities that anyone who's learning English as a foreign language should possess if they want to speak and comprehend the language proficiently. So, the first quality that my best student possesses is he has realistic expectations about his progress. One of the most important things you can do before you embark on your journey to proficiency in any language is to set realistic expectations about how difficult it's going to be and how long it's going to take. Unfortunately, many people have bought into the dream or the illusion that learning a foreign language is supposed to be easy and quick. Just buy my course and learn to speak English in 90 days. Just memorize the 500 most common words in the language and you'll have what you need to make conversation with real people. The reality is that learning any language takes years. Not days, not weeks, not months, but years. And every once in a while, you come across someone who has a natural talent for learning languages and therefore learns much more quickly and easily than the average person. But these people are few and far between. Most of us need to spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours listening to podcasts, watching TV series, and most importantly, speaking with real people before we can comfortably comprehend the majority of native speakers. And the same goes for speaking. Most of us need to construct thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of sentences before we can speak and write effortlessly. And so one thing that separates my best student from everyone else is that he clearly understands the fact that learning to speak a foreign language is like burning fat and building muscle at the gym. He knows that he's not going to achieve his goal of proficiency in a matter of weeks or months. This allows him to be patient and just enjoy the process of trying to learn something new every day. The belief that knowledge and skills can be earned easily and quickly often leads people to spend money on shortcuts that don't work and feel frustrated that they aren't making as much progress as they thought they would. The best students set realistic expectations and they commit to achieving their desired goal no matter how long it takes. The best students also possess something that's essential for learning how to speak a foreign language: the desire to speak. When you have a genuine interest in communicating in a new language, you're more likely to invest time and effort in learning it. English learners who actively seek opportunities to speak the language they're learning are more likely to improve their speaking abilities. Speaking regularly helps you become more comfortable with pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and overall language usage. And maybe you feel lots of anxiety or fear when speaking in a foreign language, especially in the early stages. But the desire to speak can help you to overcome these mental barriers. This is why there are some people who don't know all of the grammar rules or advanced words in the English language, but they can communicate effectively. They simply have a strong desire to speak. A desire so strong that it overpowers their fear of sounding strange or being misunderstood. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you become. And building confidence is crucial for breaking down language barriers and developing effective communication skills. You should also remember that spoken language and culture are virtually inseparable, meaning that our culture tends to dictate the way we use the language. And that's why the English spoken in America is different from the English spoken in the UK. By actively engaging in conversations and speaking the language with real people, you gain a deeper understanding of the culture associated with the language, which helps you to speak more naturally and understand what natives really mean to say when they speak. At the end of the day, the goal of learning a language is to be able to use it in real-life situations. The desire to speak helps bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application. When you actively seek opportunities to speak, you improve your vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, enabling you to express yourself more accurately and fluently in any situation. Another thing that separates my best student from the rest is that he wants to be corrected every single time he makes a mistake or says something that doesn't sound natural. Now, this might sound weird to you, but I've come across many people who don't want to be corrected when speaking in a foreign language. They get discouraged and lose the desire to talk if someone stops them to correct something they've said. Now, I imagine that this has something to do with the lack of confidence and self-esteem, but the reality is that you will never speak naturally if you don't let someone teach you how to speak naturally. Other students don't have problems with confidence or self-esteem. Instead, they're only interested in being heard, but not understood. I've had many students who struggle to make real progress because every time I would try to correct them, they would be so eager to continue speaking that they wouldn't stop and listen to what I was trying to teach them. And instead, they would just wait until I stopped talking so they could start speaking again. The best students actively seek to make mistakes and be corrected. Whether it's with your teacher or a friend, you should constantly be asking for feedback. You should make it clear that you want to speak as naturally as possible and that you want them to stop you and correct you every time you make a mistake. This is especially true if you're learning with someone who isn't an actual teacher, because most natives won't correct you as long as they get the idea of what you're saying. But you don't want people to just get the idea. You want people to understand exactly what you mean to say. And for that to happen, you need to be okay with making mistakes and letting someone teach you how to express yourself clearly and naturally. Apart from seeking to be corrected all the time, it's also important that you ask lots of questions. My best student is the type of person who doesn't just want to know what to say, he also wants to know how it should be said and why it's said in that particular way. Having a clear understanding of how things are said is the way to sound more natural when speaking. Having a clear understanding of why things are said in a particular way is the way to be confident that you are saying things correctly. But you do have to be careful though, because it's very easy to get caught up in the technical side of the language and spend hours or days trying to understand the logic of a particular sentence structure or make sense of a particular phrasal verb. I am not suggesting that you obsess over things like grammar rules. I'm suggesting that you ask for an explanation any and every time you find something confusing. The following is a list of the kinds of questions that the best students tend to ask. What's the difference between clean and clean up? Why can't I say grow up in this case? Why do so many Americans end their sentences with prepositions? Is there a less formal way of expressing this idea? Is that expression typically used by men, women, or everyone? There's one quality that all of the best students possess, and it's curiosity. Curiosity is a strong desire to know or learn something. It's the quality of being inquisitive, interested, and open-minded. If you're not the kind of person who's always seeking to learn and understand more about this language or life in general, you're going to have a very hard time reaching an advanced level of any skill. Now, although curiosity is extremely important, I would argue that it's not enough. If you want to reach an advanced level in any language, you need to pair your curiosity with very close attention to detail. You got to learn to pay attention to things like the specific words that people choose, where the nouns, verbs, and adjectives are often placed in a sentence, the difference that one's tone of voice makes when saying something, which prepositions are often used with a particular verb, how words are pronounced when said slowly and quickly, the cultural background of the person you're listening to and how that affects the way they speak, the difference between the way an idea would be expressed in 2 different languages. These are the kinds of things that you need to pay attention to if you want to speak a foreign language clearly, naturally, effectively, and proficiently. My best student is a self-proclaimed perfectionist, so he's always paying very close attention to the way I structure my sentences and the words I choose. He understands and respects the importance of the details, and this is the reason that it's easier for him to imitate the way I speak and to understand why I choose certain words in certain situations. He's paying attention. He's asking questions, and he's seeking to be corrected anytime he says something unnatural or grammatically incorrect. This is why I'm always talking about the importance of listening attentively. Understanding what someone truly means to say requires you to pay close attention to the words they choose and the way they say things. And being able to speak like a native requires you to pay close attention to the words that natives choose and the way they say things. Another thing that differentiates my best student from the rest is that he doesn't wait until the day of class to start practicing his English. He reads books, watches TV series, and he practices writing almost every single day. And not only that, but whenever he comes across a word or a sentence and or a cultural difference that he doesn't understand, he sends me a message and asks me for an explanation. And he does this because he's curious, he's paying attention, and constantly asking questions to deepen his understanding of the language. If I can't answer his question clearly and concisely at that moment, then I take the time to prepare an actual lesson and we talk about it in our next class. This is something that most students simply don't do. And this is why they simply don't make as much progress as my best student. This is why some people will take English lessons for years and still not be able to communicate in the language. They passively consume content in English without really paying attention to the details and the nuances of the way natives speak. And they spend 1 hour per week actively trying to express themselves in English. But there are 168 hours in a week. How much progress can you actually expect to make dedicating just 1 hour per week to a complex skill such as expressing yourself in a foreign language? It's just something to think about. Now, my friend, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to learn more effectively with every episode, then consider signing up for a monthly subscription on Patreon. Patreon is a platform that enables creators like myself to receive financial support from their audiences with a monthly subscription in exchange for exclusive benefits and bonus content. So when you subscribe to my Patreon, you'll get a vocabulary guide with every episode so you can understand all the advanced words, phrases, and expressions. You'll also get access to bonus episodes only available to my Patreon supporters. You'll also be able to listen to the podcast without any interruptions from advertisers and sponsors, and you'll get access to all new episodes as soon as they are available, instead of waiting every week for maybe 1 or 2 episodes. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to support my work, just click the link in the description of this episode and sign up. Now, as always, I want to thank you so much for your time and your attention, my friend. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Real English Radio. I'm your host, Tony Kaizen, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.